Welcome to Higear CDL. My name is Greg Williams, owner and trainer for Higear CDL Training. Today we're going to be doing the Maryland pre-trip inspection on this Class A combination vehicle. All right, let's go ahead and get started. My wheels are chalked for safety. I got my keys in my pocket. I'm going to enter the vehicle using 3 points of contact. All right, I'm getting in the vehicle using 3 points of contact. First thing I'll do, of course, is going to put my seatbelt on. Do my seatbelt inspection. Seatbelt securely mounted to the vehicle. The missing bolts and parts not damaged. The belt itself is not cut or frayed, and it latches and unlatches properly. Make sure my passenger have their seatbelt on. Put the keys in. Now I'll start off with a safe start. The safe start is I'm going to clutch the vehicle in. Make sure it's in neutral. Turn the key to the right. Allow my gauges to cycle. ABS light should go off. My DPF light should go off. And then I'll go ahead and start the vehicle. Now, with the new test, as of September 2022, the requirement is to start off with the air brake test. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to definitely make sure that my air pressure is built up to the governor cutoff. I'm just going to give it a little throttle and let the air pressure build up to the governor cutoff. And I'll do my air brake, my gauge inspection. Gauge is working properly. Light goes off, buzzer goes off. I should have between 120 and 140 PSI. You just heard the sneeze. My actual governor cutoff is 122. Now, I'll start off with my air braking test, my air brake test. Now, of course, if you fail the air brake test, you fail the entire pre-trip. So first thing I'll do is I'll turn my engine off. And I'm going to turn my key back to the right. Watch my gauges cycle. I'll push both valves in. Allow the air to settle. Then I'll place my foot on the brake. And I'll hold it for 1 minute. The purpose of the air brake test is to check for leaks in my air system. After I do that, I'm going to hold it for 1 minute. The first part of this is the 1 minute hold. I should lose no more than 4 PSI in 1 minute for a combination, 3 PSI for a single unit. And I'll sit there and hold it. Make sure you have a watch or a phone for the test. If not, the examiner will have a stopwatch, and you have to make sure that the examiner or you start the test at the proper time. After I've held it for 1 minute, I'll take my foot off the brake, and I tell the examiner I didn't lose more than 4 PSI in 1 minute. The next thing I'll inspect is going to be my low air indicator light and buzzer. I'm going to fan my brakes down, and at 60 PSI, the light and the buzzer should come on. Okay, you can hear the audible alarm, and you can see the 2 red lights, the indicator lights that are on. The last part of the air brake test, I'll fan my brakes down, and between 45 and 20 PSI, both valves should pop out. If one valve should only pop out, I'll continue pumping my brakes until both valves pop out. This one. Keep pumping until the second one comes out. There's the second one. That completes my air brake test. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start my vehicle back up. I'm going to build it up to the governor cutoff. While building up the air pressure to the governor cutoff, I'll explain the 5 mile per hour brake test. And what we're going to do for that, we don't have to do it. We just explain it. I would put my vehicle in a low gear, release the brakes, drive forward at 5 miles per hour, apply the brakes, see if the vehicle pulls to the left or the right, and see if it stops. Now, while the air pressure is building up, I'm going to give it a little throttle again. I'm going to go ahead and build my air pressure up to 60 psi before I start doing the other part of the inspection so I don't have to talk over the buzzer. Now some people or some examiners don't mind if you talk over the buzzer. So if we talk over the buzzer, we can start with the indicator lights, left turn signal, right turn signal, four-way flashers, high beam, air horn, city horn. I can also do my defrost, make sure it's blowing. Actually check the heat on the panel, make sure it's blowing. I'm going to inspect my left mirror, fender mirror, my right mirror, make sure it's clean, it's not cracked, no obstruction, and properly adjusted for me. My windshield is clean, it's not cracked, no obstruction, no outdated illegal stickers. The seal around the windshield is not cracked, dry rot, or frayed, not leaking. My windshield wiper arm is securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged. The blade itself is not cracked, dry rot, or frayed, flush to the windshield. It operates smoothly, and the wiper fluid works. My emergency equipment, my 3 triangles here in the red box, under the seat, 6 circuits, fuses, and bulbs. On the left-hand side, my fire extinguisher securely mounted to the vehicle, fully charged, proper type BC. Now, what I'll do now is I'll demonstrate the parking brake test. I'll be checking the parking brake on the tractor and on the trailer, but not at the same time. What I'll do is I'll put the vehicle in a low gear. I'm going to release the tractor valve, and then I'm going to pull a little tug to ensure that the trailer is holding. Now, I flip it off. I just release the trailer valve and do the same thing. Feel the tug and stop. Back to neutral, put the brake on. Now, I'll turn my lights on, because that completes everything on the inside of the cab. I'll turn my lights on, turn my vehicle off, and then I'll exit the vehicle using 3 points of contact to go outside to inspect my lights. I'm going to the front of the vehicle. I'm going to be inspecting all of my lights, make sure all of my lights are working, none of my lenses are cracked, no condensation, and they're the proper color. My ID clearance lights, amber in the front, red in the rear, 2 on the trailer, 5 on the tractor, 2 amber marker lights, 2 clear headlights. As I move to the side of the vehicle, at the top, amber clearance light at the top. On the side of the vehicle, red and white DOT tape is securely mounted to the vehicle, not damaged. My reflector is secured to the vehicle. On the rear, red reflector and red marker on the side. Like I mentioned before, at the top, 3 red clearance lights, 4 red tail lights, 2 red reflectors, red and white DOT reflective tape on the bumper and on the mud flap, and clear tag light. What I'll do now, I'll go up to the front, open the door, and I'm going to put my high beams on, and my 4-ways. Now for the high beams to come on, I have to turn the switch on. So I turn the switch on, do the high beams, put the 4-ways on. Come back to the front of the vehicle, 4-ways are working, high beams are working. On the side of the vehicle, 4-ways are working. The rear of the tractor, 4-ways are working. Rear of the trailer, 4-ways are working. Turn signal, I walk to the front, left turn signal is working, left turn signal is working on the side, left turn signal is working on the rear of the tractor, left turn signal working on the rear of the trailer. Right turn signal is working. Right turn signal is working. Right turn signal on the rear of the tractor is working. Right signal is working on the rear of the trailer. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the right turn signal off. On the test, the examiner will assist you with the brake light. Going to reach inside, pull the trolley valve down. Brake lights will come on the tractor and on the trailer. And I'll push the trolley valve back up to make sure the brake lights go off. I walk up to the vehicle, I look above, sides, down below, looking for any trees, low-hanging wires, any obstacles on the side. I inspect on the ground, I look for any coolant oil on the ground underneath the engine or transmission. I check to see if the vehicle is leaning left or right. Make sure it's not leaning from one side to the other, and make sure it's level from the front to the rear. As I approach the vehicle, I inspect my fender mirror bracket, make sure it's securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged. I did the face of the mirror when I was on the inside of the cab. Going to start on the passenger side, primarily because there's only one part on this side we have to inspect now. That's the coolant reservoir. Coolant reservoir securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, not leaking. The lines are not cracked, dry rot or frayed or leaking. Clamps are tight, not leaking. Over out to the driver's side. On the driver's side, we start with the power steering reservoir. Power steering reservoir securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, not leaking. Check here, make sure it's a safe operating level. Okay. The oil dipstick, I would explain to the examiner. I pull it out, wipe it off, put it back in, check, make sure it's a safe operating level. Now we have three systems on the front. The first system is the steering system, then we have suspension and braking system. I'll start off with the steering system. So with my steering shaft, make sure my steering shaft is securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, no more than 2 inches of free play before the left tire starts to move. The universal joint securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, free of debris. My steering gearbox, my line, and coupling, all securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, not leaking. My steering linkage consisting of my pitman arm, my drag length, my steering knuckle, and tie rod end, all securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, secured by the castle nut and the Carter key. My rubber bushings, not cracked, dry rot, or frayed. Now I move on to my suspension system. Spring hang in the front, rear, leaf spring, anchor plate, and U-bolt, all securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged. The leaf springs are not missing, shifted, or cracked, secured by the anchor plate and the U-bolt where the frame and the chassis comes together. Shock absorber securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, not leaking. Now we'll move on to the braking system. We stick our heads underneath, starting with the brake chamber, securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, not leaking. My ABS line is secured, not frayed. My lines not cracked, dry rot, or frayed or leaking. Couplings tight, not leaking. My slack adjuster and push rod, both securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged. At a 90-degree angle, the push rod should have no more than 1 inch of free play when the brakes are released. Now I'll stick my head behind and I inspect the drum, the shoe, and the liner. Make sure it's all securely mounted to the vehicle. The missing bolts or parts not damaged. The drum is not cracked or damaged. The inside of the drum, which is the liner, is not dangerously worn thin and is free of oil and debris. My brake pads are not excessively worn thin. Going to inspect the tire. Inside sidewall, outside sidewall, looking for cuts, abrasions, bulges on the tire. We're going to check the tire itself, looking for any uneven tread wear. With the tire depth gauge, we're going to make sure we have a minimum of 432 on the front axle, 232 on all the other axles. No mismatch diameter tires on the rear of the tractor or on the trailer. We're going to find the valve stem. Make sure the valve stem is present, has a metal cap on, and is not leaking. Tire inflation, using a tire gauge, we inflate the tire to the manufacturer's specification on the sidewall of the tire. No retreads on the front. Inspect the rim. Make sure the rim is not cracked, not dented, no illegal welds, and make sure all the lug nuts are present. The studs are not broken. The rim is not rounded out. To check for looseness, we look for rust trails, metal shavings, or shiny spots. Hub seal, securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, not leaking. If there's a sight glass, we would check the sight glass. In this case, there's no sight glass, so we would check the plug or the fill spout. Side mirror bracket, securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged. We covered the face there on the inside of the truck. Fuel tank. Securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, not leaking. Fuel tank is secured by the rubber straps, which is not cracked, dry rot, or frayed, or leak. Not cracked, dry rot, or frayed. The metal strap is securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged. Make sure the cap is on tight. Inside the cap, there's a rubber seal. It's not cracked, dry rot, or frayed, or leaking. Held on with a metal chain. My fuel lines, not cracked, dry rot, or frayed, or leaking. The couplings are tight, not leaking. I inspect my air tanks. My primary and my secondary air tanks securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, not damaged, not leaking. My lines are not cracked, dry rot, or frayed, or leaking. My couplings are tight, not leaking. I inspect the battery box cover, make sure the battery box cover is securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing bolts or parts, and not damaged, it's secure. Inside the battery box, I'll make sure my batteries are secure in the battery box. My cables are secure, they're tight, free of excessive corrosion on the cables. I move to my lines, my emergency line, my electric line, and my service line. All not cracked, dry rotted, or frayed. The air lines are not leaking. The lines are not tangled. They're not touching any part of the truck. They're secured to the rear of the tractor. They're secured to the trailer with the glide hands. Glide hands securely mounted to the vehicle. No missing bolts or parts, not damaged. The rubber seal inside is not cracked, dry rotted, or frayed, or leaking. Inspect my frame and my cross member. Make sure it's securely mounted to the vehicle. No missing bolts or parts, not damaged, no broken or cracked welds. If there's nuts and bolts, no loose or missing nuts and bolts. I inspect the apron, fifth wheel, release arm, fifth wheel flat plate, fifth wheel skid plate. Make sure they're all securely mounted to the vehicle. No missing bolts or parts, not damaged. The trailer sits flat on the fifth wheel with no gap in between the apron. The fifth wheel is properly greased. The release arm is in the locked or engaged position. Now I'll move around to the rear of the fifth wheel. I stick my head inside and I inspect the kingpin and the lockjaw. Make sure they're securely mounted to the vehicle. Don't miss some bolts or parts, not damaged. Make sure that the lockjaw is all the way around the center of the kingpin and not sitting on the fat part of the on the bottom part of the kingpin. While I'm here, I inspect the frame and cross members on my trailer. Make sure they're securely mounted to the vehicle. No missing bolts or parts, not damaged. No broken or cracked welds. I inspect, make sure there's no holes in the floorboard of my trailer. My landing gear is securely mounted to the vehicle. No missing bolts or parts, not damaged. The landing gear is in the fully raised position. The pad is not damaged. The handle is secure. Make sure I have enough gap between my landing gear and my tractor. Okay, once I've completed the walk around, I'll pause for a minute or so and just to check and see if I forgot anything. And if I haven't forgotten anything, of course, I'll tell the examiner that concludes my pre-trip inspection. Now, if you like my pre-trip inspection, you're going to enjoy my training even better. So remember to look us up on the web, Higear CDL. There's my phone number directly to me. There's the website. You can go on and get additional information and register for our classes. So what are you waiting for? Get your CDL now.